Okay, afternoon everyone. Thank you very much for joining. It's our inspiration lecture with our guest Keno, who will introduce himself, and also Jumana, who's one of our students who did her internship with Keno. So thanks very much for coming, Keno, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So hi guys, so my name is Keno Mario-Ghae, and I'm from the Little Car Company. It's a really exciting company. We'll talk to you about that, but I was given the brief that I can't just talk about the Little Car Company, so I'll talk about some stuff from university and how that translates to real life, so you can end up having like a really fun time doing what you love. Any questions so far? It's going to be completely interactive. Don't wait till the end. If you have a question, put your hand up, ask it as you go. Any questions? No? Okay. Also, we've got Jumana up there. Jumana's amazing. If you don't know her, you should. And she'll be also talking and telling you about her experiences also like at a Little Car Company and what we sort of do as well. So, this is the dream team, right? The dream team is my team. It's a special projects team. We work on special projects, software, powertrain. Anything that doesn't have a brief ends up in our brief. And it's really, really cool. It's mainly R&D and interesting bits. I think I'm one of these people that believe in diversity, like fundamentally. And so like our team is pretty diverse. I mean, we have women, we have men, we've got people with no degree, people who went to Cambridge, whatever, everything and everything in between. And this eclectic mix of like unusual characters tends to create this really wonderful team that can do quite a lot in very little time. So, introduction. This is what we're going to talk about. A little bit of introduction to myself. We're going to talk about solar racing, because I love solar car racing. I'm an absolute solar car fangirl. And then we'll talk about how that translates into developing little cars, and then how you take that idea into production, and then when you actually get to production, all the issues that you come up with and how you resolve them or try to resolve them, and then some opportunities, including joining us, like the wonderful Jumana did. So, myself, my official title is Head of Special Projects and Powertrain. I'm still trying to figure out what that means. At one point I was a project manager, and then I started doing powertrain stuff, and then I was responsible for all of our software, and then system integration, and then anything that the CEO doesn't want to deal with ends up like in my thing. So if you have like a production crisis, it will usually end up with me to deal with it, that kind of stuff. A fun fact is I've been in the company since day one. So when I joined the company, there was no company. There was literally just the CEO, and I turned up thinking there was a company, and it was just the two of us. And then 30 minutes later, the business guy turned up also thinking it was a company, just to realize it was the three of us. And that was quite exciting once you got over the shock. So, yeah, that picture there is a solar car that we developed, and I'll be going through how you actually go about doing that. Then I went to, after I graduated, because you have to get a job at some point, I then went to work for a company called Imagination Technologies. Has anyone heard of them? No one's heard of Imagination Technologies? Good. That's exactly how they want it to be. They're just a quiet company that works in the background that enables everything. If you have any Apple devices, has anyone got like an iPhone or something? Yeah? If you have an iPhone, all the graphics in every Apple product, the hardware that empowers that, all the semiconductor IP is from Imagination Technologies, a tiny semiconductor company based in Hemel Hempstead, just outside the M25. Okay? So I worked for them. It was really, really exciting. We made like IoT stuff. And then I then went to go work for a company called Pure, who made digital radios, and they were like a spin-off from Imagination. And then I was on my way to becoming an airline pilot when I got a phone call about helping project manage this little car company thing. So, have people heard of like solar car racing? Does anyone know what it is? Is anyone involved? No? Okay. So basically, the solar car team is like an army of volunteers. You know, we had like 60 people in the team, and all we did was we had this dream of like winning the World Solar Challenge. And I'll talk about what that is in the next slide when it makes a bit more sense. So there's a lot of people, mostly from engineering, but also we had people who did physics, chemistry, business, economics, land economy, and everyone came together to try and make this project happen. So you've got your technical team. You know, they are cool. They are the smart ones. They are the ones who know everything. They design the cars. They make all the stuff. And for them, the business people just get in the way. Does this sound familiar? If it doesn't, it will do when you get into work. Then you've got the business team. They are the geniuses. They're the ones who can make people part with money. They're the ones who make everything happen. And for them, the engineering people don't have a clue because they just get in the way. And you tend to have this tension between the two teams. Business team thinking that they're better, technical team thinking they're better, and no one wants to work together as a team. But fundamentally, you need to be an organized team with business and technical teams to actually make anything happen in reality. Right? So we had like structure, we had people with titles, yada, 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 yada. And this is the history of the team. Right? So we started with that car in the top left. That was the UK's ever road legal solar car. I think to date, there's only ever been 2 UK road legal solar cars. So we were the first. And then over time, we started building different types of solar cars. And this is just the what you see here. And these ones that look like bullets, I led the team that basically changed the game and started making like bullet-shaped solar cars. So, in terms of who the team are then, 60 people, design, build, and race solar cars, and really, you just want to win. You don't take part if you want to come last, right? The aim is to win. And for context, this is what the World Solar Challenge looks like. So it's basically cars racing across the desert. You travel in a convoy, so you have like 5 cars in your convoy, the solar car in the middle, you have to carry all your own food, do all your own logistics. You can't really get lost because there's only one road, but you've got to race the other teams and also camp and be completely self-sufficient and not run out of fuel in your normal cars as well, right? And that's what the race looks like. 3,000-kilometer solar marathon from Darwin in the north all the way to Adelaide in the south. Whoever gets there first wins, powered only by the sun. Right? Now, for context, at midday, on the equator, you get 1,000 watts per square meter of solar energy. And 1,000 watts is a toaster or a kettle. Right? And we're using toaster energy to basically drive at motorway speeds. In fact, the top teams, their cars are so aerodynamically efficient that they can actually drive at the speed limit the entire way. It's insane. For context, your cheap little rubbish Hyundai Getz uses 40 kilowatts to drive at the same speeds. Okay? So, what happened at the time that we were doing this is that the design has stagnated significantly. Right? As you can see, all the cars look the same. It's basically a ping-pong table with a tiny little bubble canopy at the back, a little bit of rounded edges for aerodynamics, but fundamentally all the cars kind of look the same, right? And so the only way that you could win, basically all these teams are the same. The 4 teams on the left-hand side are the Dutch team, and the 2 teams on the bottom side are the Japanese team. The Dutch team came up with the idea. They dominated for a few years. Then the Japanese did it with more money, so they dominated for a few years. Then the Dutch had even more money, and then they won it back. And it basically became impossible to win without just having even more money. For context, the Dutch team's budget was probably about £1.5 million. The Japanese budget was undisclosed, but they had every Japanese company you've ever heard of, like Sharp, Panasonic, you name it, they had it, right? They literally had to design the car, and Panasonic would just build it for them. So it was as close to perfect as perfect. So there was no chance in hell we could win by just doing the same. You cannot out-Nuna. So we had this challenge from one of these guys called one of these Cambridge Angels. Have you ever heard of this guy? Who's heard of this guy? Herman Hauser. Giovanna, you heard of this guy? No? Okay. Yeah? There's a cafe with his name on in Cambridge, yes. The Hauser Forum. That's not just a cafe, it's a startup incubator. This guy is so successful. We can have a lecture on this guy alone. You don't know him, but you do know him. He founded a company called ARM. ARM designed the semiconductor microchips that are in all your phones. Unless you're in the 2% of phones that don't have ARM, you've got this guy's technology in your phones. He didn't only just do that, he's done like... He's invested in like loads and loads of companies. They're all really successful, yada, yada, yada. But he's a pretty big cheese. And this guy was tired of Cambridge losing and coming at the back end. And so what he decided was to set a challenge, which is if we could design a vehicle capable of winning, him and the Cambridge Angels would provide us the solar cells that we needed to win. We would not get any cash, but we would get the solar cells bought for us to enable whatever design that we came up with. So there's two types of chemistries. Silicon, maximum efficiency, 22%. In the regulations, you could have 6 square meters of 22% efficiency, or you could have 3 square meters of space-grade cells, which are like 35% efficiency. And obviously, all best ideas start by watching on YouTube. And we were watching videos on YouTube, and we saw these things here called a recumbent bike. Has anyone seen these videos? Yeah? What do you think? What's special about them? The ones where the guy's like lying down and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty aerodynamic. Unbelievably aerodynamic. So aerodynamic to the point where these things were like smashing world records like month after month after month in a row. So for example, that tiny little bicycle has a top speed of 85 miles an hour. Right? And we then did some maths, and a human being, like an Olympic cyclist like Chris Hoy, he can put out 500 watts, and the vehicle can go 85 miles an hour. So we just thought, well, if we make the vehicle slightly bigger, fundamentally, with aero that good, you could go of a comparable speed. That was the thinking. So we also saw something else which was really game-changing, which is, during the day, the sun moves. I know this is so obvious, but none of these vehicles take into account the fact that the sun moves. So this was basically our eureka moment. Really small, lightweight, aerodynamic, and take into account the sun moves, and you're on to a winner. So we literally started with a blank piece of paper, and just like we are in this room, everyone got together in groups of like 4, and we literally started drawing out all of our ideas. Some of them are pretty crazy, to be honest, and they were never going to take off. But when you're trying to do something really, really clever, you need to encourage crazy, right? You need to encourage everyone to think without constraints. So there's some stuff that's pretty suicidal, like this one down here where the driver lies on his front. It's not very good for crash protection, but it could be good for aero. Over time, we started to converge on some really good ideas, and this was the first idea of a car that we came up with called Daphne, right? Then as time went on, and essentially we put the driver at the back. It had a nice like aerofoil shape, because aerofoils are generally quite aerodynamic. And actually, I skipped a big piece of the story. We actually designed something that looked just like this. In fact, actually, it's sneakily on this page. You see this little bike here? No one really saw that. But we actually designed a two-wheel bike, and we got really far down the concept about 9 months in, and we were on to a winner, and the authorities got wind of it and released new regulations that specifically banned it. In fact, we felt really proud, because, the authorities literally knew who we were, but they specifically banned it because they released some new regulations that came out in June that said, a vehicle is defined as something with 4 wheels, symmetrically spaced about the center line. So we had to go back to the drawing board, which is why we go through all of these things that you're seeing here. So I just skipped that bit, but now you know. But that's how crazy we were thinking. We're literally going to be the first 2-wheeler game changer, and then we have to be the first 4-wheeler game changer. So when you start going to CAD, first of all, I know that CAD is amazing and everyone can do really beautiful designs, but there's nothing wrong with pen and paper. Because pen and paper is so simple and so elegant, you can come up with really clever ideas even quicker. Then you start to take it to CAD and you compare it to the other size vehicles, and we realized that we were basically half the width, like 2/3 of the height, and we were just making a really, really small thing. The next thing is we started trying out different ideas and doing modeling. Like, who says the solar panels have to sit on the outer body? What if they sit on a flat plane? Do you get better solar efficiency this way, or if the cells are on the outside? Or, even better, and this is the real secret sauce, if you break the panels up, each panel can rotate and follow the sun as it moves. And because you race from north to south, and the sun comes from east to west, you only have to track in one axis to gain 25% net solar input. And Herman saw this picture, and he just lost his mind. He said, and I quote, "That is a sexy beast." And that's what we did to get our solar funding, which was that really changed everything. And then all of a sudden, we were, for the first time in our history, had a remote chance of victory. But we also had no actual money, because we had a promise of solar cells and no money. And when you have no money, you become really creative as to try to solve your problems. Like, using cardboard and wood to make sure that you can actually fit a human in this thing that you're designing. And then you start getting support. So we used to get stuff for free rather than trying to get cash, because ultimately all you care about is the stuff, and it's easier to get stuff than it is to get cash, as a general rule of thumb. So if any of you guys are in full blue, like Formula Student or the electric societies or whatever, try ask for stuff. You get stuff accepted way quicker than if you try and ask for cash. But cash is good too. And then we started building the car, doing our composite layup. That was literally the first chassis, and it basically weighed nothing. I think the chassis on its own weighed about 15 kilos. And then, just to prove I was actually in the project, and just to prove how tiny the car was, as soon as we got it on wheels, we started testing it, we started doing a lot of development, and we did something like 1,600 kilometers of testing in the UK before we even went to Australia. Right? And because we were a bunch of gung-ho people in a team working really, really hard, you become the bestest of friends, and we get to Australia, proudest moment of my life. Full stop. So that's how you go to make a project happen. You gotta, you start with a piece of paper. You don't try and design it all up front, because you'll never know all the answers up front. You will always design something suboptimal if you design it all up front. And no matter how much I tell you this, the first time you go into a project, the first thing you're going to do is design it all up front. But the smart ones will learn that way just does not work, right? If I asked you to build a tower, have you done the Marshmallow Challenge? Who's heard of the Marshmallow Challenge? Who has not heard of the Marshmallow Challenge? Okay, for all of you guys, your homework is to go watch a video about the Marshmallow Challenge. And the key thing is, children, they build bigger marshmallow towers than engineers and CEOs. And the reason is children don't try and design it all up front. They have no knowledge. So they build a tower this big, and then they go and try and build a bigger tower, and they build a bigger one, and if the biggest one falls over, they've always still got the next biggest one that they can revert back to. Whereas CEOs tend to be quite decisive people, so they try to design the best tower up front, they build it, they don't test it till the end, and it falls over. Okay? Cool. So now, because time is short, we're going to move on to developing little cars. So, in a similar manner, we have a team of 65 people, and our aim is not design, build, race, but it's design, develop, and deliver electric vehicles all the way around the world. And we basically build electric cars for companies like Aston Martin, Bugatti, and Ferrari, and a few others. Yes?
Sorry, did you win the competition?
No, we didn't. We didn't. You don't actually know what happens. We actually crashed the car. Yeah. But that's a story for another day. Or for later. It depends how we do with time. We'll see how we get on. But no, we didn't win the race. We crashed the car. And we got on BBC. Okay, moving on. So, this context is quite important. So, the Bugatti Baby is, so Mr. Ettore Bugatti, founder of Bugatti, he built the Type 35, which is like the most successful race car ever. I'm going to fangirl about it for like 2 slides, but you sort of need to know that basically it's an amazing car. Okay. So, yes, he built a tiny car for his, goodness, it's just skipping forward too quickly. Okay, let's try again. Don't know why it's getting stuck. Okay, point is, he built the Type 35 Bugatti, which was like the most successful race car of all time, right? It basically didn't weigh very much. It was the first car to have aluminium wheels. Everything else at the time was steel. The first car to have an aluminium engine block. Aluminium all over the place. Aluminium body. He was a game changer. The front wheels were hollow, so they weighed less. And so the vehicle weighed about 750 kilograms. And it had like quite a small amount of horsepower. I think it was something like 90 horsepower. And it was beating all of its rivals, like the Bentley blower that weighed 1,600 kilograms and had more than twice the horsepower. So it was small, lightweight, efficient, etc. And just to let you know how amazing this car was, it won over 1,500 races, which I think is the slide I skipped over. Look, it won over 1,200 races, set a bunch of records, and it was unbeaten for basically like a decade. Whereas now, like a Formula One car can't be unbeaten for more than like 5 races, you know, because like the technology moves on so fast. So that just lets you know how revolutionary he was for his time. Yes. And then he then built a very small car for his son, Jean. So although Bugatti is Italian, they've always been based in France, and so his little kid is called, he had a kid called Jean and a kid called Roland. And he built this tiny little car, half-scale replica, but beautiful attention to detail for his kid Roland. It was electric, even back in the 1920s. And little Roland used to drive it around the factory, and customers would come along and see it and be like, that is so cool, I want one. And so he built 500 of these tiny little cars that are so small, they're literally about that big. So if you're more than 4 years old, you can't drive it. And they basically sold out. He sold 500 of them. About 130 of them still exist today. And they are official Bugattis, part of Bugatti history, so they are incredibly valuable. When I say incredibly valuable, this is the price of Bugatti Babies on the auction market over the last 20 years. And last summer, one of them sold for 130 grand at auction. This is a tiny car that no one can drive, by the way. It's ridiculous. So, as they came to their 110th anniversary, Bugatti came to us as in our CEO at the time, because there was no us, and they wanted to recreate the Bugatti Baby. And literally, they just wanted to copy and paste it and make it again, make another 500 to celebrate their 110th anniversary. And he had a genius idea of making it slightly bigger, but still small. So big enough that an adult and a child could drive the car. And that's exactly what, it took a while to like get that agreed though. There was a lot of back and forth. But ultimately, they agreed that we could make a 75% scale version of it. And it took a long time to sign the contract, but when the contract was signed, from that day, 30 days later, the first prototype, which was 3D printed, was on the Geneva Motor Stand show, showing what it would kind of look like and how big it would kind of be. And off the basis of this 3D printed model that was done in 30 days, including transport and building it in Geneva, which we finished building at 6 a.m. in the morning of the show, we had 500 people express an interest in buying it. And there started the company. So the CEO then thought, damn, we actually have to do this now, and we have to grow a team, we have to da-da-da-da-da. And then that's where the phone call came, that's where, like, you know, the three of us came, and then we managed to persuade a few more people to join us along the way. Now, in terms of what the cars actually look like, that is this guy, first of all, this guy is an incredibly wealthy car collector. And you can tell that because he has a real Bugatti, Type 35, which in today's money is worth north of 2 million. He's got a tiny Bugatti Baby, which is still worth 130 grand plus, and he's also got one of our cars in the middle, whose value is typically about 60 grand, but he had a few extra things added to his, so his value of his car is undisclosed. Right? And what we do, which is slightly different, is that you've got to be meticulously attention to detail. The car's got to look exactly like the car. The suspension is got the same suspension geometry as the original car, so it handles the same. We have Bugatti test drivers test drive our cars to make sure it handles like a Bugatti, right? Even the steering wheel's mahogany. You know, we literally like fangirl about the tiniest details. That little Bugatti badge is the real same Bugatti badge off the Chiron. So it's 50 grams of solid silver, which is, I won't say the price, but it's a lot. And this is the team, yada, yada, yada. And this is our factory. And, you know, it's kind of like a really clean, airy, light environment. And these are the slides I have to put in here to keep my CEO happy. So we love inspiring the next generation. We love Bugatti. Bugatti's the first one we did. Then later we made an Aston Martin DB5. Really, really wicked fun. I have not included the videos of Jumana drifting it, but I might show that later, if time allows. Then we built the Ferrari. Oh my gosh, the Ferrari. Ferrari 250 Testarossa. Beautiful, elegant. Body made from aluminium, rolled by hand. 200 man-hours to make the body. You know, like, it's that level of attention to detail and obsessiveness. You know, not everyone in the company is a car fangirl, by the way. Or at least they weren't before they joined. But every single part matters to making this wonderful product. The Ferrari is basically like, the prices went up yesterday, so it's now basically 100 grand, not including tax. And then we managed to build a Bond car. So we've also got a Bond car. The machine guns come out the headlights, just like the No Time to Die film. And again, like, the team sort of works together on this. And then, because we're all big children, really, we've made big cars little, and then we made a little car big. So we've made an RC car that's full size. And we're currently on our second prototype of this, and you might see a video of that later. So, key thing is lots of attention to detail, and for those of you people that like to see how a company grows, this is how we've grown over time. So that's the boss man, then me, and then a whole bunch of other people, and then Jumana. So she's even important, even in those numbers. Okay? There's customers, there's all this kind of stuff. So this is a little video. I don't think it's going to work, so we'll skip it. Or is it working? A little time lapse of what it's like when you actually put the car together for the first time. So this was the first Bugatti being finished and being built, getting its wheels, getting down onto its wheels, and then going for its first drive. Yeah. Okay? And then what we sort of do in, like, my team, really, as part of the development bit of, like, developing a car, is develop the powertrain, analyze the data, you know, test and test and test, and make sure the car is fundamentally reliable. So we do, like, literally thousands and thousands of kilometers of development driving before any vehicle is actually ready to go to customer. Now, in terms of production and scale-up, we typically build about 5 prototype vehicles of everything before it goes. So 5 Bugattis, 5 Ferraris, 5 Aston Martins, and so forth. And then you've got to do all your marketing. You've got to make manuals about how you build the thing so people build it the same way every time. You've got to pick your selectors, pick your team, get quotes. And obviously, if you guys do engineering, you should have heard of a bill of materials. Who has not heard of a bill of materials? Cool. Learn about what a bill of materials is. It will become incredibly important. It's pretty much like the shopping list of how you make the vehicle. Without a bill of materials, you're literally just guessing. It even counts everything down to, like, what type of screw you have that goes where. Then, you know, the next part of it is you then have to, like, design for manufacture. You've got to, like, set up all your procurement, work out, like, when it comes to, like, buying things, do you buy 1,000 at a time? Do you buy 50 at a time? How does your economics work? How does your business model work? The finances are so important. And then logistics. All of our customers are literally across the world. You know, the first 5 cars went to Dubai, Australia, South Africa, America, and Germany. So you literally need to have people who know how to get cars into all different parts of the world and understand, like, laws, you know, import, tax liabilities, etc. Now, challenges. We're not going to dwell on this forever, but Brexit was a complete nightmare if you ever built something. And this has nothing to do with politics at all. This is a non-political discussion. This is literally talking about engineering. And you don't realize how much of your stuff comes from not the UK until Brexit happens. Right? Now, all the stuff that came from China or from different parts of the world, they were unaffected. But as an example, we used to order batteries from Holland. And the order, when you placed an order, the order was the paperwork. Right? It came 3 days later by magic, and it cost £50 to ship it. And then Brexit happened, and you have to fill in, like, an hour. You have to spend an hour filling out, like, customs paperwork. in addition to your order, it takes 2 weeks to come, and it costs £250 to ship it. And that's just the batteries. But you start to imagine that on like every single component, and there are over 1,000 bomb line items on every car that we develop. And the complexity just becomes a bit crazy. So that was one challenge, and we just had to get people who are really good under pressure, really flexible, really good at like finding solutions to problems. And they're the reason why our company has kept going, even despite all these challenges. Then obviously, COVID was a massive problem, fundamentally a massive, massive, massive problem. And what we actually did is we started designing the Aston Martin as lockdown happened. So we just designed it from home. And then by the time lockdown went away, we built our first prototype. And then that's kind of how we got around the whole thing, rather than just sit down and twiddle your thumbs for 6 months. In terms of opportunities then, because this bit's the really fun bit, we are always looking for fantastic people to do lots of different roles, right? But me personally, I'm looking for really great people, really great engineers, software, hardware, whatever, who really want to learn, develop your skills, and grow. And so, Jumana, would you like to talk about your summer?
Yeah, hi everyone. Sorry. Go.
I'll just mute us, yeah. Go on.
Hello. So my name is Joanna. I'm a fourth year student, and I did an internship at the local car company this past summer. So between my third and my fourth year, and it was about 2 months long. And what I found is just working in a startup quite different than working in a big company that I really enjoyed my process throughout. So I started off doing some software stuff, so I got to design a digital dashboard, and I got to do a lot of electronics, and also, as Keno mentioned earlier, we have to do a lot of testing, so there was a lot of driving involved, which was very fun at times. You get to just take the Ferrari out for a ride, go at 90 kilometers an hour, and it's great. But yeah. Throughout my summer, I really got to try a variety of things because I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted to do. So I did software. I also put together an electrical harness for one of the cars, and I was also there during the time when the Tamiya was being developed. So that was really interesting to work on and just see the prototype being built and see how different it is when you're at Imperial and you're doing design projects. You spend so much time like overthinking every decision and going through the entire process. But when you're in a startup, you have to be really fast moving because if you don't, the company could literally go broke any second. So putting the time together was really interesting to see how you just have to kind of things and just go for it and work on it. So yeah, it was a great experience for me.
What was the hardest bit of, what was the hardest thing you had to do? Or what did you find the most difficult, most challenging?
I think the most challenging was definitely not overthinking my decisions and just learning how to be placed in the environment and just you have to learn things on the spot and not spend so much time overthinking and trying to apply every single bit of theory in the industry and just adapting to that way of thinking as opposed to what we were used to.
And for you, what was the most what's the thing that was the biggest, let's say, surprise to you that you didn't really expect? Or like, what was different to like your expectations the most? For me, like the most different things in my expectation was I thought it was a big company that already existed, and I got there and I was the only one, right? But what was the most different thing for you that didn't match your expectations?
I think how chill everyone was with everything. People were so understanding, and I was expecting a bit more of a stricter work environment, but I really liked how flexible everyone is, and it's more of a like you work as a team and not there just to fill other people's expectations. You're there like to collaborate, and I really liked how you just worked as a team and bounced ideas off each other, and it was very friendly.
Okay. So, my slides are done. There's nothing else. So it's up to you guys for any questions that you may have for me or Jumana. Ask her more questions than me, though. Yeah.
I'm just curious, what's the 0 to 100 but 80 like?
Well, given that the fact our vehicle's top speed is 80 kilometers an hour, it's about 13 seconds in the Ferrari. It's about... Actually, no, the Bugatti cannot technically get to 80. It can get to like 72 in 16 seconds. The Ferrari gets to 80 in 13 seconds. The Aston Martin used to get there in about 13 seconds, but it got a little bit heavier to make it better at drifting. So I think that one's more like 25 seconds. Yeah? Did you hear the questions, by the way? Do you want to? He just asked, like, you know, what's the 0 to 60 time of the car?
And also, I was curious, like, the change from the solar to, like, this electric, what are, like, the weather conditions that can sustain in all the different countries? Some of, like, the places, like, I just said South Africa, well, I'm from West Africa.
Yeah.
So, like the roads, I don't know if, like, it can handle, because the potholes exist.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, the cars are not road legal, except the Tamiya. The Tamiya is going to be the first car we do that's road legal, like, from the beginning. But the other cars are not road legal. They are just really nice toys, essentially. Yeah. You had your hand up? Yeah.
Would you be accepting any one applications, and what would the process be like?
Would I be expecting any first year applications? Yes. We do accept applications from first years. We accept applications from anyone. Oh, sorry, let me rephrase. My team accepts applications from anyone. In the design team, they may be a bit more strict. So the design team don't like having summer interns, right? They like having people on year-long placements. But they're currently looking for some year-long placements. I mean, I'm looking for summer interns and also a year-long placement. But normally the way I work is the year-long placement is normally someone that comes from the summer internship. Generally speaking, because, you know, we like a team that works well together, so usually, you know, you don't want to have a disaster where you have someone who doesn't work in a team and now you're stuck with them for a year, right? You know, you want to have someone who works well together as a team and actually likes being there, because then it's fun for everyone. I mean, you know, Jumana's been in the team, everyone like really gels, you know. I was going to go back to slide number 1. Oh, that's the wrong computer. But, you know, slide number 1, you know, like, these pictures are not faked or staged. You know, that's just how it is. The team just vibes really well together. There. The dream team. I really like working with the dream team. And in terms of backgrounds then, for example, like, Andrew never even did a degree, and he's been in the company, he's been employee number 5, and he never even did a degree, but he works on, like, software and powertrain stuff. So it's more about being good. And just as a general tip for, like, life in general, no one cares about your degree. Actually, like, the second you graduate and you get a job, nobody cares. Right? The same way, like, who's ever asked you about your GCSEs? Whereas at the time of GCSE, it was a massive deal. But once you had A-levels, no one cared about your GCSE. Once you have a degree, no one cares about your A-levels. And once you have a job, no one cares about your degree. Right? Because if we have a problem to solve, I don't care if you went to Imperial or you never studied anything, I care that the problem got solved. And the other thing as well, which is more important than your degree, but no one will ever tell you, so I will, is you cannot train someone's attitude. However, you can train skills, which is why Andrew, who's a wonderful guy, great attitude, hard worker, keen as anything, unbelievable work ethic. He's now doing his degree after being with us for like 4 years, right? And you can train that. I mean, he already knows all the stuff. He's literally smashing like 85% in every module because he's done engineering for 4 years and now he's been taught how to do engineering like he's never done it, right? So you can train skill, but you cannot train attitude. A terrible person is always a terrible person, and I will never hire a terrible person. Literally, like when you join the team, and Jumana did not know this at the time, neither did all those other people, but like I don't actually make the hiring decision. So actually the team picked the team. So the reason Jumana was picked is because Femi and Andrew were like, oh my God, she was amazing. Her code, I've never seen code so elegant. We need her in the team, right? Ayushi, she was fantastic. And they were like, oh my God, we need her in the team. And Tash, everyone was like, oh my God, can you start on Monday? He came on Friday, he started Monday, right? And that's just how the team works. Femi was just like amazing. I mean, He was like the very first intern. And now he's on a year-long placement. But the point is, like the team picks the team, and we hire for attitude, train for skill. Right? We don't hire for skill. I actually don't really care what degree that you went to, because if I did, and if I was so snobby about it, I'd only pick people who went to Cambridge. No, think about it. Think about the logic behind it, right? Because if I want the best degree, I'll go to the best. And don't get me wrong, Imperial can be third or second, but Cambridge is first. Oh, he said it. But the point is, right? The point is, if we really wanted to think about it, there's actually a serious point behind all this, right? If I thought like that, none of my team would have ever been hired, except Ayushi, because she's the only person who went to Cambridge, right? It's actually really important to have a team full of people who do not think the same, right? When you have a team of people who think fundamentally differently, you can develop patentable IP in 9 weeks as a side project, whilst also developing vehicle harnesses, software from scratch, interactive dashboard display, and testing 3,000 kilometers. Right? When you have people who think differently. But if you have everyone who thinks the same, it will take you 3 years to achieve less than that. And this is the reason why we keep having interns. And we keep deliberately picking people from different places, because we do not want a team full of samey people. Because actually, it's just bad for business. Actually, the year we had women in our team was the year we did the best ever. 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 And Giovanna was there. We didn't have to lie to her. She was already there. She saw. So, any other questions? Yes, good sir. Where do you see the future of the company going? Oh, we just want to keep doing cool stuff forever. We want to keep doing cool stuff and having fun forever, because that's ultimately the dream. Like, I don't feel like, don't get me wrong, like, there's a lot of really hard days, and a lot of work, right? I mean, I literally finished this presentation like 5 minutes ago, right? However, like, no one ever has to make me go to work. And I commute like an hour to get to the office. So like, I have a long time to consider whether I really want to be doing this, right? And I love it, right? And that's ultimately the dream, is to keep doing like really fun stuff. We have a lot of interesting projects in the pipeline, but I can't tell you unless you're under NDA. But let's just say that the Tamiya is pretty cool, and it's the first one that's going to be road legal, and it's the first car that's a little car big, you know? And there'll be a bunch of other little car bigs and maybe a bunch of other big car littles. Everything will be really fun to drive. Everything will probably do donuts in the snow. Any other questions? Yeah.
I wonder what kind of people is your main customer for the company?
I would say like there's like 3 categories. There's like car collectors, some guy who has like a bunch of Ferraris and Aston Martins already and just wants to add this to the collection. Those guys are really, really fangirls. They'll literally like match the chassis number of their little car to the chassis number of the big car. There's a bunch of people who are more aspirational. So if you love Bugatti, I mean, you can't buy a Bugatti without dropping like 3 million nowadays. So it's your only way of becoming a Bugatti owner for less than 3 million. So for 60 grand, you can actually become a legitimate member of the Bugatti Owners Club with a certificate of authenticity and everything. And then the third sort of client, they just tend to be like, I don't know how to say it, just like people who just like get it as like a piece of art. So there's literally, one of our clients, he literally built a plinth in his kitchen and put the car on there as a piece of art. So every time someone comes in, they're like, oh my God, I love it. Oh, it's so wonderful. So like that. Yeah.
I know obviously you made your own so as a team and I thought about making your own car.
Have we ever thought about we make our own cars all the time.
I mean like, as in obviously you make like the models of the like Bugatti.
I couldn't possibly comment. Yeah.
What are the sort of biggest challenges you face, especially in design and manufacture?
What are the biggest challenges we face in design and manufacture? People. The engineering side is actually quite easy. I don't want to let you guys down or anything, but the engineering side is actually quite easy. The question is, what's the biggest challenges we face in design and manufacture? It's important to include the people online as well, by the way. But honestly, the biggest challenges are people. If you have a really good team where everyone like talks really well and has really good relationships, internally as well as externally with your suppliers, everything's really easy. But if you actually look at most of the challenges, they tend to have people at their core. usually one person with an ego over here, not sharing information or being disruptive to people over here, and then that causes a breakdown. So it may look like a technical problem, but it actually might just be an ego problem. So for example, I mean, Jumani, would you like to share a bit better?
Yeah, so actually my first I think 2 or 3 weeks at the company, I had a lot of issues with the technical team because there was a lot of issues between team members, and some of the things that I wanted to manufacture, I couldn't get manufactured exactly on time because some people did not think I was capable enough, just because I don't know, but there was a lot of judgment there at the beginning, but then we got through it and it was fine. But that did hold me back.
Yeah, people challenges are the biggest bit. And if you ever get into management or leadership, if you ever want to get into management or leadership, like a bigger percentage of your job just becomes dealing with people issues or working out how to not have people issues in the first place. Usually by getting a better team culture. Yes, good sir. Where do we get funding from? We have investors. Actually, at the moment, we're doing a funding round. So if you want to invest, let me know. But yeah, on a serious note, yeah, we have investors, and we literally got like investor meetings later today. So, yeah.
All right. So, thank you very much, Keno. We'll show our appreciation in just a minute. Thank you very much for coming and sharing your enthusiasm, your passion for what you do. It was really inspiring, so we really appreciate it. Keno's here for the food that's outside, so you can ask him questions, and he'll join the beginning of the Pen 2 lecture at 2 o'clock as well. So let's show our appreciation to Keno. Thank you very much.
And Jumana as well.